Those of Us, a podcast intended to inspire grit in the pursuit of ideas and what could be through the realities of life as told by entrepreneurs, leaders of people, artists, and creatives. Constantly run 24 minutes, 32 seconds, 24 minutes, 31 seconds, 24 minutes, 30 seconds.
The entire time.
We're gonna be here till 1.
Yeah, for sure.
All right.
We'll do breakfast and then pizza afterward.
Yeah.
All right, let's go.
All right. Welcome to Those of Us. We've got Rae Stone in the house this morning. Contemporary painter from Oklahoma City. Welcome, Rae.
Thank you guys for having me.
It's wonderful to have you. So we have some of your pieces here.
Yes.
But let's we'll get to those here in a little bit. But there as our wonderful backdrops in the store right now. But what started you on your art journey? Was one of your parents an artist or?
No, not really. Neither one of them are, I would say, overly creative. They were both more musical. And I've thought about this before, like we didn't really go to art museums as a kid, and I was not exposed to, I'd say like high fine art as a kid.
Sure.
I feel like it was mostly skill. I don't know, like I always felt like I was better at drawing than other people or my family and stuff like that, and it was always something that I really liked to do, and so it's something that I cultivated. And then as I was thinking about what I wanted to go to college for, I knew that I had this gift, and it felt like almost like I needed to be a good steward with it and pursue some type of artistic thing in college. So that's kind of how I ended up deciding what major I wanted to be, almost.
Yeah.
Kind of. Yeah.
Which, being the best artist in your family is a big deal because of the size of your family, right?
Well, and I think that a lot of them use me as a crutch because they're like, oh yeah, Rachel has all of the artistic talent. She's stolen all of us from us.
So they outsource that to
Yeah,
you.
so they like don't even try.
Yeah.
Because they say that I have stolen it all. So I think that a lot of them could be a lot more creative, but I'm sure it's a little bit weird or intimidating or whatever to like have someone who's like, it feels weird to say really good at it, but I think that they don't try because
Totally.
they've given it to me.
I feel like even that, though, is a testament to a little bit of creativity within your family, because I feel like every person in your family like chooses like a niche that they like go after, and it's not like, oh, they're doing this, so I'm going to do it. It's like, no, they're doing it, so I'm going to do something else.
Totally.
Yeah.
Well, and I think some of that has to do with just being from a really large family, is that we all, I think, had this need to differentiate ourselves from the rest of my siblings and from like everyone else. So it's like, I can't be like you. I've got to make myself special in some way or pursue something different. So I think there was like a sense of rebellion in that. And then also like, our parents were really encouraging and never were like, you have to make money with what you do.
Yeah.
They're like, you can live with us until you're 50 years old. It doesn't matter. So like they've given us a lot of freedom to kind of pursue what we wanted to.
Totally.
Which is really good.
So let's zoom out of that just a little bit because
Yeah.
Tyler knows you well. He knows how big your family is. I know nothing about you really outside of the fact that we have your art here. So like, what was growing up like for you? Are you from Oklahoma City?
Yeah, so I was born in Texas, and then we moved to Oklahoma City whenever I was 3. I was homeschooled until junior year of high school, and then did junior and senior at a charter school that I teach at the moment. I'm from a really large family, so I'm one of 11 children.
Whoa, that's crazy cool.
Yeah,
Dang.
all from the same mom and dad, which is like
Beautiful.
wild.
That's amazing.
It's awesome. And insane and crazy, and I would never ever do it in a million years, but wouldn't give any of them back, so that's good.
Totally.
Right.
Totally.
What's that?
But it's
Cheaper by the
wild.
dozen? Were your
Seriously.
parents like kind of frustrated when that movie came out? They're like, come on, we actually have 11. This is freaking Hollywood.
I feel like literally when it came out, we were probably at like 8 or 9, so it really wasn't close.
It became a goal.
Yeah.
Like,
I don't know. Well, because there's like a cheaper by the dozen that's from like the 30s.
yeah, that's true. I forgot about
So
that.
there was like a model before it, or maybe it. I love that movie as a kid because it's like, oh yeah, we're not freaks. Like there's
Totally.
something in
Yeah,
Hollywood.
yeah.
Like I
Yeah.
felt represented almost in this like wild way.
So where do you, in that litter of puppies, which number are you?
I'm the second oldest.
Oh wow. So
Wow.
you saw most of it.
So like
Yeah.
third mom, essentially.
Yeah, well, the birth order of the family is interesting as well. So there are 3 girls at the beginning, and then 6 boys, and then 2 girls at the end.
Whoa.
So there was very like segregated.
We're not mixing batches. Like
No. So it's
For
like
real.
the girls are in charge of helping the boys survive, and there are definitely a lot of systems in place to make sure
Totally.
that
Were
everyone.
those systems communicated?
Oh
Or-
yeah, we were
oh.
very aware. Like we had very strict chores. We had partners that we would like be in charge of a certain little kid.
Holy cow, this is so different.
Isn't this amazing?
It's wild.
So crazy.
Yeah, and then like I was probably cooking all the like dinner for the whole family at probably 11 or 12.
Dang, I assume your husband is grateful.
At this point, he probably does more cooking than I do, just because I'm like, I've done it. I'm
You're burnt
fine.
out.
Yeah.
You're retired.
Like, I'm okay.
Yeah.
I'm tired. I hung my apron up.
Well, yeah, and it's been an interesting thing with like kids as well, because I say that my mom used up all of my maternal instinct, because I'm like, no, I know what a kid, like what that entails, what a baby entails. Like I've taken care of them. My littlest sibling was born whenever I was a junior in high school, so it's like she could have been mine, and
Yeah,
we took care of
wow.
them, and it's like now I'm okay for a long time.
Yeah.
For a while.
Yeah.
Because I've lived it. So it was a wild childhood,
So
but it was good.
contrast to that, what does your husband come from? Like, did you marry a single kid like that?
I mean, he has
Only
two.
child?
He has 2 siblings, but like background wise, we're very different. He's from a small town. His dad's a lawyer. His mom is a assistant superintendent of a school.
Wow.
All of his siblings have like pretty high-powered jobs in a way, where they're lawyers and doctors and a speech pathologist. So he's like the black sheep of his family. Not black sheep, but just like creative. We're gonna have a
He's
good
creative
time.
too, so 2 artists married
Yeah.
each other?
He's a little
That's
bit
interesting.
more. Yeah. So I think from our families, we're both like the most open to. Well, I don't know. I mean, one of my siblings is like 8, so I can't speak for her life yet. But I think
that's
we're
crazy.
open to whatever happens, and that's different from his family to mine.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Super
Man.
interesting.
Well, Tren, the second youngest,
Oh, man.
is literally constantly dancing.
Yes.
I would be shocked if she went into any profession.
Second
other than-
youngest on your
On mine,
yeah.
your side?
Yeah.
How old is she? So like, what are the age? I mean, you probably don't know exactly what age everyone's at, but is like everyone a year apart, or is everyone like?
There's some like interesting gaps. So my older sister is 30, and then I'll be 27 on Saturday, and so that's a
Happy
3.5
birthday.
year. Thank you.
This
So
is
that's
your
like a
gift.
3.5 year. Then the next one is like almost 2 between me and my younger sister, and then there's like 18 months, 18 months, 18 months, 18 months kind of a thing, and
Holy
then
cow!
Those
the
are all
younger
boys?
ones. Well, Hope in between like Hope and Noah.
Gotcha.
There's a small amount, and then they're kind of really close together, and then the last 3 are more spread apart.
That's insane.
Yeah.
We have a 3-month-old, and I can't imagine like hopping back into it as
Yeah.
soon as she's done. Like
You
essentially,
know.
as soon as she's done like breastfeeding, it's like
Yeah.
we're pregnant again.
Yeah.
Man, and
It is
doing that
wild.
like 5 times in a row.
I know. I think
It's so cool, though. I mean,
it is, and I think the way that my parents' personalities gel together, I think their combination lends to having a big family.
Yeah.
Like, I don't know Enneagram-wise, but my dad's a 7, so he's like really excited and loves kids and wants to be active and always wants people around him and is ready for like the next new thing. And then my mom's a 2, so she's like a helper and loves to feel needed and wants to take care of people. So I think the combination of the two, and we knew other really large families growing up, so it's not like we were freaks among freaks instead of freaks among normal people. So that was good.
So there were other people like that you and your family ran around with that had more than, or not more than you, but more than average amount of kids?
Yeah. So we grew up in like a kind of conservative church. And the majority of the church was like homeschooled and large familied.
Yeah.
So they definitely like, once we moved back to Oklahoma, found their people.
Sure.
And we had a really consistent, really awesome group that we grew up with. So we didn't feel insane.
Yeah. Well, and it's definitely not insane. My mystification has nothing to do with it being crazy. It's just like, I can't imagine, starting my family now, like I can't imagine what I would do with, 11 of
10
them.
more.
It's just like, it's kind of amazing.
Totally.
It's incredible.
And like even you referenced Cheaper by the Dozen, and like in that movie the house is just like insane all the time.
Yes.
Like it does not feel like that around your family.
Yeah.
Like I'm sure that there are moments, but like
Yeah. Well, and I think when there were definitely the insane moments, I think whenever there were more little kids.
Sure.
I think my mom, whenever there were 6 of us.
When were there not more little kids? Like it's just constant.
Well, I would say more than, I don't know.
Oh, like I guess as you
and, like,
top
teenagers.
3 grew older.
Yeah.
I gotcha. You had more. She had more help.
Yeah.
For sure. And we contributed a lot for sure. But I think whenever there was, 4 toddlers, or it feels like an exaggeration, but like a 5-year-old and a 3-year-old and a 2-year-old and a lot more.
Totally.
Felt a little wild, but yeah, here we are.
That's crazy cool.
Yeah.
11 kids. So the youngest is a sister, and she's currently 8.
Yeah.
And you're turning 30. Is that what you said? You're turning 30? You're
27.
turning 27. Your sister is 30.
Yeah.
That's crazy cool.
Yeah. It's a wild age gap, but it's really fun.
So whenever they moved here, how many of you were there?
4.
4?
Yeah.
So you would have been how old?
3.
So do you remember Texas at all?
Yeah, I do. Yeah. I would say that out of all my siblings, I probably have the best memory. Like I remember a lot. Of like childhood and even like really, really young.
I wonder if that's an artist thing. Like, is that something that you draw from, and so your brain is kind of like, like open to, because it's all there, right?
Sure.
The data's all there.
Yeah.
You just don't like.
It's the
isn't
recall.
that kind of proven scientifically about memory? It's like we just don't operate in the capacity of accessing all of it typically.
Probably.
Yeah. I mean, I would say it's probably more typical for like visual artists to have a better memory when they're younger. But like for me being a songwriter, like I don't remember anything before like honestly like 9 or 10.
That's
like
wild.
Yeah.
Were you just drunk 1 through 8? Like
I think like my like memory points in my life are driven by emotions. And so like I remember an emotion of a moment, but I don't necessarily remember like
interesting.
Yeah, like I don't remember like the wallpaper in my childhood room or whatever.
Yeah.
But
I can and I'm extremely visual. Like I can tell you like it's like movies playing back in my mind. Like I can see full images. I can explain to you exactly the house that we were in, like my dad's work, places that we visited, grandparents' houses, and I think a lot of that probably does have to do with like a visual memory and recording of like the way that my brain functions, and then how I've like translated that.
Totally.
And a lot of times with my students, I feel like the biggest thing that I'm helping them, I teach art for high school kids at the moment, is like I'm wanting to help them see things well, to like take a step back, take a deep breath and look and see it.
Yeah.
And a lot of times if I can help them see, then they're like, oh yeah, I get it, and then they can do it on their own. But until I'm helping them, okay, look here, what do you see, repeat back to me exactly what's going on, and then they can kind of almost comprehend it, and then it's like a light goes on where they can see it almost going forward. So I don't know if that has anything to do with it, but it's always an interesting thing of like, they're like, Miss, I don't see it, I don't understand, and I'm like, take a deep breath, look right here, do you see the difference between this and this? And they're like, oh my gosh, yes.
What's amazing what we subconsciously intake without intentionally, you know, choosing to like retain information, because we're constantly being like,
for sure,
at all times bombarded with visual things. And so like, it really does take that intentionality to like soak that in and retain it, because there's too much to retain naturally, you know, without that intentionality.
For sure.
I wonder if, not to return back to talking about your family, but like I do wonder too if like the spacing within siblings, like through the act of like storytelling and recalling memories, like sparks your memory throughout your life to like help you retain that. Because like if you have a dream and you wake up and then you're like, oh, I have to remember that, and then, you know, 30 seconds later you forget that dream, but then later someone says something that like sparks, you know, your memory for that dream or whatever. I wonder if it's like that too with like close siblings. It's
you mean like now recalling?
Well, even like
happened
throughout her whole life. Like, remember at the old house where blah 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 blah, and then it's like it kind of like rekindles the flame of that memory as you move forward.
Well, and I feel like some of it I don't know, I feel like whenever I was being brought up, I don't know, there was like an obsession with home videos, and so my parents and grandparents and everybody always had like the camcorder or whatever, and like recorded freaking everything, the
big like VHS
literally one. And so, and I don't know if that's just my family because I can't speak to anybody else's, but like my grandparents and my dad and like everyone always had this huge freaking thing, and we took it on vacations until like,
that's
you know,
amazing.
2007 or whatever. It's like, grab the camcorder or just record everything. And so I'm wondering if that has something to do with it too, because not only do I have like a mental image of it, I also have like all of these movies that I've watched my whole life.
Yeah, I get that.
To like reinforce. It's almost like making new like pathways or worn pathways. And part of me is like, to my other siblings, I'm like, this is freaking recorded. Like, just go watch it. And sometimes I don't understand how, like, that's like the retention part of it. Because I feel like I remember almost everything that I see. I wouldn't say a photographic memory, but if I have a mental image of it, then it's not really going to go away.
It's crazy how even within our lifetime, like, the boombox VHS recorder is now here. Totally. And, like, I'm even thinking of that little Osmo.
There's so many things are here.
It's insane.
Well, and the way that people interact with it is totally different as well, where we would like grab out the box with the tapes and plug it in and spend all afternoon like going through memories. And now,
and the whole family would gather around and watch it together.
Yeah, or maybe not my
like,
parents.
not my whole family.
Right. I don't know if my parents ever gave a crap, but like we were super into it as kids.
They were just happy to breathe. Like all the kids were doing something.
Oh my gosh. So, but yeah. Well, now we interact with it through our phones, and obviously interacting as a kid versus an adult with memory is really interesting as well. But yeah, it has changed in a wild way.
Yeah.
So I'm going to put you to the test with something.
Yeah.
As fast as you can, minus yourself, oldest to youngest, full names. Go.
Mirage Noel McCloy, Hope Gabrielle Boyd, Noah Nathaniel Boyd, Micah Michelle Boyd, Eli Faithful Boyd, Daniel Judah Boyd, Samuel Nehemiah, Gabriel Gleeman, Trinity Angeline, Emma Adelaide.
Wow.
It's amazing. Wait, will you say Micah's middle name again?
Michelle.
That's such a sick name.
Oh, man.
Yeah.
Yeah, I've always been really upset with my parents because I feel like they had super creative, really exciting names for literally every other sibling except for me. Like, I get saddled with Rachel Elizabeth, which is like the most quintessential,
Saddled.
like,
Great word,
90s
saddled.
name. Like,
Yeah.
Noelle is Mirage Noelle, and then Hope gets Hope Gabrielle, and then I'm stuck with like Rachel
Elizabeth.
It feels so freaking basic, and I've hated it my whole life. Like, my whole life.
So is that why your artist name is Ray? Let's
A little bit, yeah.
Get into that. What do you hate? You just think Rachel sounds clunky, or
It does sound clunky, and it and in the church school I went to growing up, there were literally like 9 other Rachels besides me, and it always bugged me that it had
Sure.
this like really unique name. There's several times in my childhood that I would like make a pact with a friend of like, we're changing our names, and we would go by like boy names or whatever, just to like make it happen. I tried to make nicknames happen my whole life.
do you
Never
remember
Tried to
happened.
make nicknames happen.
I know.
All
Do you
my
rem-
friends, they call me the
At
Pink
like
Starburst.
15,
so-
I think 15, I was like really obsessed with the name Trey, and I was like really gonna go by it.
By Trey.
And I had a friend who was like, yeah, I hate another Rachel. I was like, I hate it too, and she's gonna go by another boy name. So,
That's amazing.
yeah. Well, so initially, whenever I was had just graduated from college, there was a lot of conversation of like what I wanted to be, what I wanted my career to go by, and I went through a lot of different iterations of name, and there was this kind of going back and forth of like, do I want to brand myself like as a gender, or do I want to try and be gender neutral? So there was a lot of names kind of going back and forth of just like, what if I was just R Stone, or what if I was like RA Stone, and then trying to think of like, how would people say it? Would it be confusing? So we landed on Ray with RAE. I feel like people could say it correctly every time.
Sure.
It was a little bit more vague than like Rachel. There's no
Sure.
like going back and forth, and obviously I'm not trying to be like hugely gender neutral, but I didn't want it to like punch you in the face.
Sure.
That I'm a girl.
Rachel
So,
Elizabeth.
Yeah. Here it is.
So where does Stone come from?
My husband's married name, or my husband's family name. I don't
That
know.
you married
My
into.
Right, yeah,
name.
you're married.
Yeah.
Which, luck of the draw, honestly.
Oh, it's such
Yeah.
a great solid
Stone
name.
is
Yeah.
great.
It's awesome.
solid.
I could have had like Butts or something. So
Totally.
it's great.
Man, I know a guy named Jake Butts, and
No, you don't.
I do. He's a
Dude,
great guy.
he's-
Yeah.
What?
And he has a sister. I can't remember her name, but she's gonna
Kinda
marry
really
up no
weird.
matter what. With that last name.
What if she finds the one guy and his last name is Shtick or something goofy like that?
Schlong.
Oh my gosh.
So
yeah.
Ray Stone.
Yeah.
Amazing.
So we landed on it. There's a lot of thought put into it.
So you went with Ray Stone, and you said that there was a lot of intentionality behind it. Is that between you and your husband, or you and a collaborator, somewhere in your personal life, or?
Actually, I feel like a lot of those conversations were with Joy, Tyler's wife. So we had a lot of brainstorming sessions right after, either when I graduated from college and like kind of the summer after I graduated, of what we wanted that to look like. She was kind of my sounding board on a lot of stuff.
God, it's such a necessary role. I
Yeah.
have such a similar story.
Yeah.
Yeah, and I so appreciated, like, she's just a really good goal setter, and then I think she has such a good mind for the market, but also just a great listener and asking really, really
Sure.
great questions to help me get to places. So we had a lot of brainstorming sessions of like, what is this gonna look like? What is the benefit of having this name versus this name? And then obviously for me, it was a front a ton of research and reading and looking and just looking and reading and research and books and books and books, just
So
kind of landing there.
The overarching question and kind of like directive there is how to take Rachel Stone, the in her room artist, the student, and turn her essentially into a brand and a business version of that essentially to get your art more exposure, like just bring about more of a legitimacy to you, essentially, right?
Yeah, for sure.
Okay.
Yeah.
I think
I feel like so few artists think about it that way.
Absolutely not. Yeah.
That's how I think about things too, and I consider myself an artist in many different regards, but you don't hear other artists think about like that intentionality, and I don't know.
Yeah.
My last name is Filkins, and I decided that if I ever became a painter, I would do first name, middle name, or like if I ever had a medium that was like purchasable, it would be the artist Logan David. Not because I love my family. I think that my name.
Yeah.
I'm very sentimental about that because I was essentially kind of grafted into the Filkins family at a middle age. But just the way it sounded, I felt it like it's so much more marketable to be Logan David. So
for sure.
Rae Stone is, I think it's very strong. I think it accomplished exactly what you really kind of set out to do.
I think it's also a really graceful way to like separate you as a human from like you as a marketable product as well, and you get to retain some of like stuff that you just want to keep for yourself, out of the world of like your marketability, which I think is another thing that a lot of people don't think about.
Right.
Well, and in college I had an art and business class, and then I've looked at it a lot since graduating, but there's a lot of like actual legit business reasons to like separating your personal and like business
platforms
out,
and,
of even just like getting sued or liability and stuff like that, filing bankruptcy, and I don't know, there's just like a lot of business stuff there that I wanted to be really aware of moving forward.
So what you're saying is college benefited you?
Oh, absolutely.
I'm shocked and so impressed that you guys went through an art, like a creative business program, because a lot of people that I talk to who walk away with like a creative degree get into the world and they're like, what the heck, how do I even function? Because there's no business side of anything that they're taught.
Well, and it was one class for one semester, and he just like literally sprinted through material. And looking back at it, I really wished it would have been literally one class per semester. So you would have had like 8 classes in it, like let's do tax, let's do branding, and I think that would have served people a lot better than what we had. But I was really thankful I graduated from OU for that, at least that one class, and it wasn't even a required class for everyone. It was one that I really happened to get into.
I think
that's crazy too.
You might have really enjoyed that, but I think that just like you pursuing that intentionality, enjoying that, and I just feel like that would be honestly such a wind about thing amongst other, like
until they graduated.
Until they graduated, and then they look back. It's like taking algebra or something like that. Like I'm never gonna use this. I just need to be in a studio, man. I need to be developing my voice.
Right.
So that's really cool that you had the foresight to like actually grab a hold of it, because semester is not very long. Like
it's really not.
So much information can go in one ear and out the other in that like 4 months or whatever.
Well, and I almost feel like I don't even remember a ton of particulars, but I just remember that it's like, oh yeah, that we talked about that, so let me go learn about that again.
Totally.
It's like where it almost gave me a formula. I also have a really great book called Art and I can't remember what it's called specifically, but I got it from Commonplace, that literally kind of details a lot of the business side of running an art
Commonplace
career.
books.
I know,
For
I love
real.
them
God,
so
that
much.
place rules.
And I'm not even all the way through it because it's just so rich and like really specific. Like,
what's the title of it?
Let me find it.
You can
I'll
tell me
find it
later,
for
yeah.
you.
Or yeah,
but
look it
I
up.
think
You
it's
can look it
literally
up.
artwork, and it's I have it on my Instagram. Let me find it. But it's really helpful. I may even have gotten it in their pop-up, like even before they really even started in their location. But
I'll look for it for you.
yeah,
You said it's in your Instagram?
I found it.
Oh, yeah.
Everything you need to
Quick
know
genre.
as you pursue your art career. And
Oh,
it's
well,
art
that is not an
slash
easy
work.
title to remember.
No, I mean it's a freaking
Everything
long
that
one.
you've ever
But
needed
it's
to
been
know
so
about art.
helpful, and like some of the more practical stuff
It just
of like
rolls off the tongue.
like shipping insurance. Like if you're shipping a
wow.
painting to somebody and it gets damaged by the people, have you insured it for its like the material worth or like what you would sell it for?
Right.
There's like a
Wow.
lot of tax stuff
Which is important in
involved,
terms
and,
of like scalability. You can't just sell, you
Absolutely.
can't just put, you know, a painting in every house in Oklahoma City. Not everyone's going to jive with your style, but
Yeah.
to be able to, in a business savvy manner, open it up to the World Wide Web, like that's
Yeah.
that's so important, right?
Well, and
Like,
I've been really hesitant about doing any type of online shop because of that reason. The sometimes just shipping alone, when packaging for shipping, and then like the legit just shipping fee can be up to like $200.
Yeah.
So it's like if you're only paying me $500 or $400
Sure.
for this painting, and it's costing me $200 to ship it to you, that's not worth it to me.
Right.
So you can come find me in Oklahoma
Sure.
City, and I'll meet you somewhere. So
At some point, once I've been really interested in how people overcome this as well. I have a friend slash competitor, a friendly competitor,
A friend of me.
that we talk a lot about our business, and I mean, we only talk, on the phone maybe 3 or 4 times a year, but he does a lot of what I do, but he does it a little better because he's further ahead than me.
Right,
He has
yeah.
more tools, more whatever. But B, he also, like 90% of what he does ships to different parts of the country. These are big, bulky pieces of furniture
Yeah.
that like
Wow.
someone runs a forklift into it, and the whole thing is scrap. You can't straighten it. You can't,
Yeah.
you can't fix that finish. It's like we have to rebuild.
Totally.
And I don't know how he does it.
That's painful.
Honestly, it's I've never really asked him because I don't want him to think I'm like stepping on his toes or trying to do what he does. But
Totally.
but it is something that has allowed him to be like scaled at a much greater. Like he moves table bases like this.
Yeah.
For me, it's like the custom commission twice
Totally.
a year or whatever.
Totally.
So
yeah.
yeah. So anyways, he ships stuff all across the country, and it blows my mind. Like big, essentially empty boxes. Like if you think about shipping a table, like these aren't IKEA things that flat pack
Right.
and screw together.
Yeah.
They're like, the size of a dining table.
Sure.
Yeah.
And it's essentially empty, but it's protecting like.
It's probably
know.
like blanket wrapped and like
Yeah,
all
well,
kinds
yeah.
of
I mean, they
stuff.
build these elaborate crates, but then, like, randomly, I happen to have worked at the airport at FedEx and
Yeah.
see like how.
They handle packaging.
Yeah, and it's absurd. Don't ever ship music equipment.
Sure.
That like they just see those Pelican cases, and
Yeah.
it's like cool, so I can throw this one.
Oh my God.
Seriously, it's kind of wild.
Oh, that's crazy.
But
And
those
cringy.
guys are zooming around at like 28 miles an hour on forklifts too, and like forks just go into crates sometimes, and it's just pretty wild. So, anyways, so have you shipped anything ever? A painting?
Not painting. I've sent drawings in the mail before, so those like smaller 8x8 ones. I just got those back. But those are like flat lay and can go in an envelope really
Right.
easy.
Yeah.
But I've never shipped a big painting before. I'm sure like if the opportunity presented itself and it was a good trade-off, then I wouldn't have a problem. I would figure it out. And I know that there are people who have done it before, and we live in the age of the internet, so I
Totally.
would make it happen.
Yeah,
But,
for sure.
Even
yeah.
regionally, I feel like it would be awesome for you to like hand deliver on like a road trip, like
I
a
was gonna-
painting
yeah,
to someone.
like I
Like
think
fun.
that there's a lot of potential marketing opportunity, but like around vlogging something like that, and
Totally,
like
yeah.
putting it together for $200. Like if you think about that,
That's a road trip.
yeah, it's a nice little road trip for you and hubby, and you
Totally.
make it to Kansas City in half a day, and you deliver it, and you're like, you know, vlogging the whole
With that being said, do you feel like you are like the type of personality who like documents yourself naturally?
Not myself, no.
Okay.
And I've tried to be a little bit more conscious of that, especially with my Instagram and stuff like that, of trying to add in more of a human element to it.
Yeah.
I think if it was just me, then I would just document work and like the tip of my paintbrush and canvas, and I think all of that stuff to me is way more interesting.
Yeah.
But like response wise, I always get a more favorable response whenever there's more of a human aspect into it,
Totally.
which I get. And I think one of the things I'm trying to work on at the moment is verbalizing and putting into words my practice a little bit.
Mm-hmm.
And I struggled with that in college to the point of like I just give up. But I'm really trying to communicate more effectively about my work and about my practice, because I think that that's a really essential part of people connecting to it and getting kind of a deeper understanding of kind of what's going on in my mind, and kind of the backstory behind what they're seeing initially.
Totally.
Which doesn't have to be there. Like I think great art stands on its own for sure, but there's just a deeper level of connection there. And I think that people in the art world, like curators, and like hopefully again as my career kind of progresses, that's going to be a lot more essential to people with higher powers that can help things move. So
yeah, like Logan's personality, he like documents nonstop himself, everything around him, just naturally. For me, I like never think about it ever.
Yeah.
So if you go to my Instagram, literally zero content.
Totally.
0% content.
I'm looking through your Instagram right now, Ray, just like scrolling through it, like as a, like, I think that you have such a cool, consistent aesthetic.
Yeah.
And it like makes me want to ask too, like who these photographs that are obviously not you taking selfies.
right.
Do you have a friend that is a photographer and like, you know, just swings through sometimes and takes photos of you, or do you and your husband, because some of them are of you and your husband too, and I mean some of them are obviously like a wedding photo or something like that, but some of them look like just trips or something like that. Like who in your life is shooting you?
There's a great friend who did our engagement photos, and then we did a shoot together. Her name is Lindy. She helped us out with that. There's another girl who I found on Instagram. She's like friends of somebody that I knew from high school, and she's done a couple of shoots with me, where I asked her for headshots because I needed them, and then she like had a random thing on Instagram of like, hey, there's fog outside, who wants to shoot with me? Let's do it for $50. And I'm like, me.
Yeah.
And then I'm trying to think.
These shots of like your workspaces, is that just you and an iPhone, or is that the same people?
There's one of me with an iPhone. I feel like I just discovered the self-timer where I'm like, oh my gosh, this is crazy. And like literally propped it up on a chair and like went over there, and I'm like, I hope my face doesn't look weird. There's some like really light and airy shots that, are from a great friend and her husband who helped me with my branding that hopefully that will be launching soon. So they're brilliant, beautiful people.
Who are they?
So their names are Nate and Katrina Ward, and their design company is called Half Design, and then Nate works for Ghost. They're on Broadway, in Automobile Alley.
Right.
They're great. But they're helping me. We're doing kind of an exchange where I'm paying them like part in cash and then part with a painting.
Cool.
They're beautiful. Awesome people. So I've got some shots from them as well. Yeah, and my brand, I'm really excited to hopefully launch a website and all that stuff in the next couple of months. So
that's awesome. So what you already have the URL, I'm assuming. So what will your website be?
It is raestone.co.
Nice.
Okay, cool.
And there's the
Edgy.
like, I know. I know.
That
So
kind
European of you.
I
Forget
know.
the M.
Well, we looked at dot art, but again, I wanted it to be a little bit more like ambiguous. I really don't totally know what you're getting
God,
into.
I love that. There's
Yeah.
so like that's my favorite way to brand and to like I really love living in the no, you're gonna have to work a little bit to understand
Totally.
me sort of space. Like
Totally.
that's so
Well,
cool.
And I think there's an aspect of it that it's like people don't want to be told what to do
Yeah.
or what to think. And I think if you can give them more, like,
Just drop some breadcrumbs.
right, that
Yeah.
they
Well,
want to
people like to
they want to
discover
figure
things
it
too,
out.
yeah.
And yeah, so there was a lot of kind of little bits in that, and we didn't want my branding to be too obvious and colors to be too obvious, and
Yeah.
a lot of that stuff for it to be a little bit more ambiguous and for the work to either shine through or just like I don't want stuff to like hit people in the face.
Yeah.
It's not really my style, and it is some people's style, and I almost think that that goes along with my work as well.
Sure.
I'm not really like a shock
Sure.
artist where I'm like trying to like go out and create these crazy things and
Right.
you know, yeah, where I'm just trying to create something that's really beautiful and that leaves space for people in it.
Yeah.
So they can have a moment, yeah, to have some peace while they're looking at what I've made.
I just love like the thoughtfulness behind everything. Like,
Yeah.
Yeah.
I know there are people out there who will like hustle and learn all of these like different aspects of things and do everything
Mhm.
across the board
Yeah.
pretty okay.
Yeah.
And then there's some people who are like, I want like a sounding board and I want to utilize
Yeah.
like someone to help me with branding, and I feel like there's just a beautiful like, I don't know, organism aspect to like working and collaborating with people.
100%.
And you
yeah.
mentioned paying like partial, like with cash and painting.
Yeah.
And I was having a conversation with a friend this week actually about how like bartering in the creative community is like a real thing.
For sure,
and like
yeah.
is kind of like rising up a little bit more than it has in the past.
Yeah.
Have you had experiences like that aside from this one where you're like paying partial for like services or like
Yeah.
trading?
Well, yeah, I've traded painting for like a haircut and color before.
I love it.
So that was really fun. I feel like I've done it on like more institutes. I think it could happen more. I think that there's this like really initial awkwardness of like, what do you place your value at, and then
Sure.
where am I placing my value at? Where if it's not really clearly stated, like I
Sure.
never want to cheat somebody out of
course.
something.
Yeah.
And I never want to like undervalue what somebody's doing, and I don't want to undervalue. We're in a like there's also this like really awkward thing of price and money exchange with creative things where
And amongst creative people, because
Totally.
a lot of them don't think about it as businessy as it seems as though you do, and so
Yeah.
a lot of people are like, yeah, but I know that only took you 3 hours, you know, like or
Right, yeah,
whatever. They kind of like cut through to it's not like its actual value is very different than how long it took me to do
totally
it.
then like man hours
Right,
and
right.
stuff like that. Yeah,
Yeah.
for sure.
And that's like the strange nature of art in general. It's like
For sure.
it's as much as you're willing to pay. Like that's
Oh,
the value. You place the
100%.
value, which I think is the beauty of barter, because like cash is literally so arbitrary in the fact that someone just said this sheet of paper is worth 100 things. You know, like
I trip
currency.
myself out thinking about crap like that all the
Yeah,
time.
can get really
Like,
stony
this
about it.
whole thing is built on these tiny little pieces of paper.
Yeah.
Right. It
But,
is
like,
about
yeah.
exchange though, from like one person to another, and I think that's the beautiful thing. Hopefully, well, and Oklahoma's like such a weird place in the world for it as well. Like I
Yeah.
think
In
people
terms
are
of art value,
yeah, as
Yeah.
far as like almost visual art value as like I don't know. I think there's just like an interesting culture around it, and I've talked about it with a lot of other creatives, like visually or just kind of in general about the space. I don't know, like what Oklahomans deem as like valuable, because there's an interesting aspect of like the people who can afford to pay thousands of dollars for paintings are not going to buy them in Oklahoma City. They're going to buy them in
Yeah.
LA. They're going to
Sure.
buy them in New York. They're going to buy them in Paris or
Sure.
whatever. So if someone's from big oil money or family money or whatever, they're not going to spend their big money in Oklahoma City. They're going to spend it in other cities.
Totally.
So there's an interesting dichotomy, and even my professors in college, I had one who was a sculptor. He was awesome, but he was probably like 65 or whatever. and he kind of talked about it. He's like, one of the most damaging things about, like, most damaging things to my career is the fact that I'm from Oklahoma. It's like, if I was from anywhere else, then I would then my career would be like so much better. So I think that's one of the things that I've wrestled against.
Yeah.
In the past couple of years of
Well, because you basically have to make the decision of, do I want to be someone who claims to be from Oklahoma and helps set the tone for good art from Oklahoma, or do I want to have immediate, success and accessibility by claiming somewhere else, which is interesting. And the thing about Oklahoma too is you'll have these people with oil money who want to buy art, but instead of buying something like this, they'll go buy a horseshoe and railroad stake, installation that's very Western and and pay tons of money for it. But it's not necessarily what I would be oh, that's great art, For sure. So
yeah, no, it is really interesting.
It's definitely an interesting place to live, especially in this time.
Yeah.
I mean, you mentioned World Wide Web earlier, but it really is opening the gate, the accessibility and revealing that Oklahoma is not horses and teepees, but it's there's real great art here.
I'm so interested in what I know we're not currently in the Paseo's heyday, but I know that based on what it looks like, there had to have been a heyday, and I think it's still really a strong art centric area, but I feel like there had to have been a moment when that little block was really booming. And I know it's kind of people have poured money into it recently, in terms of buildings and businesses and things like that. But I wonder if, in terms of specifically art value, if there was a time when that was at its highest, and then we had the internet and everyone was business, Wall Street, whatever.
Sure.
And if now our generation is kind of
ramping back,
trying to, there's so many more makers and creators.
Yep.
Not even of just specific art, our friend Tyler, hand stitching, all of this stuff that, I mean, essentially it could be outsourced to Mexico or, anywhere,
sure,
but there's so much more respect with things that are handcrafted. It's so much more revered than, maybe I just wasn't aware of it, but than it was 10 years ago. I don't know.
Yeah.
But I just wonder if and even neighborhoods like this, if we are able to put a staple art gallery that's maybe more local next to 21C, and this one's constantly revolving, and it's all and only local artists.
Yeah.
I know that there have been a few galleries like that. I wonder if they were in the wrong place.
Right.
I don't know.
For the right time. Yeah.
And I feel the value of art, at least as far as it is on my radar, seems to be slightly trending up.
Yeah.
Have you experienced that?
Yeah, and I think it's hard for me to differentiate just the upward trajectory of my personal career with the way that the Oklahoma City scene sees it.
Right.
Because I mean, I don't know of is my art just getting better? Are people more interested?
Right.
And I think there is really something to people who are aware and conscious. Feels weird, but people who are woke,
Sure.
to whatever,
Sure.
whether or not they want to buy sustainable clothing, and they don't
Yeah.
want to buy from fast fashion, and then they want to put original art on their walls. Just seeing value in what you're kind of seeing, that handmade,
Right.
original, quality type things, instead of something really cheap that they can just throw up. And I think art has a place in that.
For sure.
And
For sure.
And a part of me kind of struggles with is that the audience that I'm aiming for? Am I wanting to just have this career where it just reaches people in Oklahoma City, or am I wanting to have a career that reaches across the nation? Am I wanting to have a career that one day will get a painting or a piece will get put into MoMA, or that I'll have shows in New York City? And I think I'm wrestling with almost putting, or not knowing, do I value, feels weird, but like, am I gonna fight for the art scene in Oklahoma City, or am I gonna be a little bit more selfish? I'm gonna fight for my career and my work and like my pieces.
Yeah, I feel you.
You know, and it's a weird kind of, am I happy with just selling people for their, like, selling art for living rooms? Is that the goal, for art to be among people? Like, or is there a wider discourse there? Like, do my pieces, like, what's the right environment for them? Are they meant to be around people? Are they meant to be, like, in white boxes? And I've, like, Mark Rothko was like very, very specific about how his pieces were viewed, and I feel like I haven't had the almost the privilege of like dictating that yet. And there's a lot of ideas like really swirling of like, should a painting be viewed in close quarters and then far away, or like how things are viewed and how the atmosphere feels. And I think scale has a lot to do with that, and practice, and I feel like I'm going off.
No,
that's
it's
great.
important. I'm picking everything up. I know exactly what you're saying.
There's a lot of questions there for sure that I want to explore.
Even what you were mentioning about like your social media presence and stuff, about the greater response being with like the humanity of it. I think that's something that culture in general is trending towards, because we've experienced such a digital revolution of like, we have access to everything, but I think what everyone is craving is like a humanity aspect, that human interaction aspect. I think even, you know, what you're talking about with like Tyler's hand stitch stuff, it's like you could easily go buy that for maybe half the price, less quality, but like half the price in Mexico. But the fact that like, this is a dude who's like sewing things locally. This is an artist who's doing things locally, and there's an aspect of humanity to it. I think is super attractive, and I think that people are like wanting that and longing for that.
For sure.
So
I think that at like our generation specifically is kind of bringing that. Or when I say our generation, I guess I mean like 25 to 35 or 40. Like these people that have kind of grown up in the 80s and 90s, for whatever reason, we seem to be the ones that are trying to reach back to hand production and locally created and locally sourced and whatever. I think that there's so much value built into the fact that I'm supporting this person's family. I'm supporting,
totally,
rather than sending it off to some dictator type businessman that's figured out how to harness 40 people in a factory somewhere, whatever.
It has a bad impact on environment and stuff like that.
Totally.
Right. So I'm really interested in what you think as far as, like, you talk about kind of being at war with how your pieces should be viewed.
Yeah.
I mean, where have you landed anywhere on that? Because that's a really interesting, I guess, subject to me as an artist and as a person that like walks through museums and like is really fascinated with someone that not only wants to create something but also wants to create the experience with how you interact with that.
No, for sure.
I think that that's such a cool, it may be a longer, harder road. In terms of, scaling something from a business perspective, because not everyone's going to get it. No one can take it home.
Right.
Nobody can talk about their friends with it because it's not in their living room.
Yeah.
But what do you view as more respected?
I think there's in some ways I feel like I don't have like the privilege to go there yet. Like, I'm still in the beginning phases. Like, if I was in a perfect world, like this and this would happen. I also think that like, I do think that the exhibit environment is really something that I would like to play with, that there is an anticipation, and I feel like everything that I've done and everything that I've seen, at least here happening in Oklahoma City, is like really boring. I'm sure there's exciting things happening in other cities, but I think as far as like art, like the way that we're displaying and interacting with it is not like interesting at all. Like, I think that even when the thing that I kind of come back to is I want to put someone in a slightly uncomfortable, but like just different. I want to change the way that they're viewing it. Just even if that's something like they're walking down into something and then they have to like duck to get into a room to like see something.
Right. Have you been to Factory Obscura?
Yeah. Well, I haven't been in, but I'm really familiar with it, and I know friends who have like worked in it and stuff.
I think that is definitely part of probably the cutting edge for our small metro experience. I think that is really a really fascinating environment, and,
for sure.
And specifically it seems like that is what they're tackling, it like the interaction of art, the tangibility of it, the tactile, like the being inundated with sound and light and space and color. But it is really new. To like experiential art, and the way it's displayed is very, very new to even probably the mindset of most people here. Most people here think of the 21C type experience where you just walk around and you see a little placard and you're like, oh, that guy took this picture there.
For sure.
What?
Yeah.
What?
Or like the Oklahoma City Museum, which each room is like really, I don't want to speak against it. It's like great, but it's boring. Like there's nothing exciting about it. The experience is not exciting.
Sure.
Walking in, there's nothing fun. And I'm kind of wanting to marry that experience with painting, and like how do we view painting, because Factory Obscura is amazing, but it's more about the experience. It's not quite as much about let's look at this really exciting image. So there's a lot of like different ideas of like running through my mind, because I think if people like, okay, I'm going to an art exhibition, there's going to be some wine, there might be some snacks, and people are just going to be standing around. They're going to look at it, the painting, for 2 seconds, and then they're done because it's boring. Like, to wanting to create a little bit more interest. And I've almost thought of it of like, what if there were like floating shows or like interesting spaces. I would love to do something in a warehouse or like or in a back alley. Again, just wanting to put art in a really contrasting areas where you can look at it and see it in an interesting way, where it's an exciting thing for people to go experience and look at, where it can be a longer experience. Because I feel like, again, people feel pressure to look at something and understand it, and so when they don't understand it, then they like check out really quickly, or they think that there's something more like the higher. I don't know. I get like a lot of questions of like, what's your art about? Or is there like, I'm like, I don't know. It's just like color and shape and the way that it interacts. Like there's no narrative behind what I do, and I think that's intimidating sometimes, because people think that there has to be something, or they're not getting it, and then they feel weird because they're not getting it.
And a lot of what you're talking about is like culture too. Like this is the way that people have experienced art this whole time. So that's just the culture that's set. And when you're taking culture from one place to another, there's always that resistance of like the previous culture. But even with the narrative stuff, it's like, when I look at art, I like attach myself to that art. And so it's, I don't know, when I'm enjoying a piece of art, it's a lot less about like what the painter was going through when they did that, and more about like how it relates to me as a person.
No, for sure.
And maybe that's just like a pretentious way to look at art, but like,
no, I don't think
you're so pretentious.
What did this artist do for me?
No, but I think that's the way that all people should read it, and I think that to me is the way that it should like go through, and I think that's why I've really navigated or like been drawn towards abstract art, because it doesn't, like, again, it's not putting something, it's not telling you how to think, it's not telling you how to feel, it's all about how you're feeling in the moment, and depending on how you are feeling, you could read something in a totally different way. And I always want there to be like something new that somebody can get when they're looking at it, and I don't know, there's a lot there, but no, I think you're right. But I think that people who aren't around it and maybe aren't educated in it, like there's this, I tell my students this a lot, I think people who aren't very familiar with it sometimes think that they have to like everything that they see, and they have to like understand everything that they see. So I tell my students a lot, I'm like, you don't have to like it, but I want you to tell me why you don't like it. You need to have a reason why, and then like that's okay if it doesn't, like, you don't have to hang everything in your living room, but I want you to appreciate it for what it is.
Sure.
And I think sometimes people don't totally understand that. They think that they have to, like,
Right.
you know, this is fine art. People
Right.
say that's amazing.
They have to
like
be
it.
part of the flock or the herd.
Yeah, that's super interesting because I feel like there's not, in any other creative medium, there's not that assumptive pressure to like everything.
Totally.
It's like if you're talking about music, it would be absurd for me to be like, I enjoy every single genre of music.
Right.
You know?
Or like I would listen to this when I'm sad every single time.
Exactly.
You know?
Yeah. That's really interesting because I think I've noticed myself in my like journey of appreciating art to be pressured in some way to be like, oh, I don't like this, but I appreciate it. And it's like, I guess there's not really that expectation. Like,
No,
you feel
so
free
much
to be like,
freedom to
this
it.
is trash to me.
Totally.
And the crazy thing about art is it could be trash to you and someone else would be like, this is the best thing I've ever seen.
Absolutely, yeah, absolutely, yeah. And we walk through that with my students a lot. We look at a ton of stuff, and we have the conversation of, you know, you don't have to like it, you don't have to, but I want you to, like, we need to understand where the artist is coming from, maybe the process that they designed it. There's a lot of really great videos from PBS. It's a channel called Art Assignment where they kind of talk about the language and how to talk about why, I don't know, like, if it's good or if it's not good, or like, that was easy, can a machine make art? Like, so we talk about it. We want to talk about the theory. And I tell my students, I'm like, you're probably not, there's maybe one of you guys that maybe want to pursue art in the future, but my job is to help you have knowledge to understand it and appreciate it as adults and want to contribute to it when you grow up. So it's an interesting thing.
Dude, shout out to PBS.
Yeah.
My whole childhood.
I know, right? So good.
So kind of in summary, there's got to be other people out there that feel this way. That feel like Factory Obscura is cutting edge in one regard. You essentially, just to like put a blanket statement over it, are interested in a creative way to recondition the way that we view flat painted art, specifically. Like hang on the wall type pieces, or, you know, prop up, whatever.
Yeah.
But essentially, like, not sculpture and light and music and, you know, like hitting like all, how many senses are there? 6 senses? 7 senses? 6 senses?
Bruce Willis has 6. But
5 senses?
Yeah.
So there's 5?
Yeah, that's 5.
But you specifically want to, or are interested in, as part of your creative process, not on the front end, but on the back end, change the way that art is viewed. Like, me and Tyler go to an open house or something that's, you know, got a bunch of art on display, and you essentially see like a card of instructions that's like, you know, stand at the blue tape, you know, stare for 30 seconds, take 5 steps back, and try to blur your focus. Like, what does that look like to you?
I don't think that it has to be that instruction. Like, it doesn't have to be that obvious. Like, I think that you can create environments, and I've looked a lot at, like, in like stage design and
I gotcha.
Like retail design and artists and that type of thing.
You're right.
But of wanting to help people, of great design leading people there where they don't even know that it's happening. Like, and I've thought about it of, okay, how can we make that happen? I've thought of a system of like, okay, so the paintings they're on this like little trolley system where they're like 5 pieces apart, so you're walking into this room and you have to go walk in between the paintings to look at them, and then 30 minutes in they all shift where then now you can see them from 50 feet away.
Whoa.
Like kind of a thing.
I'm
what
driving
if somebody
with you now.
what
This
if
is
somebody
cool.
Yeah, I'm into
they're
that.
all facing like the wall where there's like 5 feet, and then they flip around and now you can view them from
So it's
40
almost
feet,
like an automated sort of, I mean, at least the specific instance that you're talking about and describing is like it's almost like going to a performance of some sort.
Yeah, almost like choreographed.
It's
really
like
specific.
some sort of manipulation of how you see it, not based on being told to do something, but almost your inherent reaction to the way the space is,
For
or
sure.
react to you being there. Yeah.
Absolutely, yeah.
Very interesting.
Yeah.
I love that.
Well, yeah, and that's just like as far as I've gotten on like brainstorming on like how to facilitate it. Again, kind of going back to Mark Rothko, he was really his contracts and stuff, he designed all of how his paintings were exhibited, and a lot of times he made them so large and then made the space so confined you literally couldn't view them from far away, so it was almost like this just enveloping paint all around you, where it was he wanted his pieces to be very, very contemplative and meditative, where you're just like in the color field and really close to it. I think it's interesting now because a lot of his pieces that I've seen in person now are like I can see them from far away in the back of my mind. I'm like, you would have hated this, like like this is terrible, but there's a lot of that.
You mean because the way that they've moved throughout the world and the way that they're currently displayed? Oh, I gotcha.
Yeah, because he was like so meticulous whenever he was alive of how they were hung and like together and stuff like that. And so yeah, I've seen them in Houston and Dallas. And
how do you feel about the way we have yours displayed currently?
No, I think it's great. Like, and again, I don't in my mind, like,
you're not there.
No.
You're right now you're experiencing or experimenting with what you can do on a canvas as an artist.
Totally.
But your foresight for where you want to be in 6 months, 2 years, 5 years is like you want it to be more than just this.
Totally.
Although this is beautiful and you're happy with it and everyone else is very happy with it, you want it to be more of an experience than, hey, look at that painting.
Well, and I think that eventually it will go back into someone's home like this.
Sure.
Yeah.
And I think, like, eventually, like, just, I don't want to, from the information I'm operating in at the moment, I have no guarantee that my art will be in that kind of place.
Sure.
I have no guarantee that
It's
it could
goals.
be in a museum. Yeah, for sure.
#goals.
I know. We'll get there, but like what I'm operating with at the moment, and even like scale, like I want to scale up what I'm doing to a really big portion, but then there's like practicality of like, will this fit through a door? Well, this is like transportation of this thing.
Right.
Like, I just did a 5 foot by 7 foot painting, and that was the transportation of that was really rough. Like, if I went any bigger than that, literally, I would probably have to get a U-Haul.
Was that like in
truck.
on a hard framed canvas like this, or like a banner type thing?
I painted it just in canvas, and then we framed it after, and then delivered it framed.
Very cool.
Yeah.
So you would almost have to deliver anything bigger than that, just canvas and frame it like in
potentially, or you would just like to get it out of a freaking door frame. We would.
The tip, like the highest you can go is about 7 feet.
Yeah, and then I could go wider, but there's a lot of there's restrictions there of just like legit practicality.
So you've mentioned Mark twice, my good friend Mark. The artist, Rothko.
Oh, Rothko, yeah. I was like, I have no idea what you're talking about.
I would just love to know, like, some of your influences, like, and if there was any influences leading you into the journey of becoming a painter that, like, really inspired you.
I feel like, as far as, like, getting started, I think I just wanted to create and wanted to make. Like I said, like, growing up there, I didn't read a lot. On art, I wasn't very knowledgeable art, like name wise. There's kind of a point in college that I was like, okay, like if I'm gonna take this seriously, I've got to read all the time. Like I was kind of like watching TV, and I'm like, if I want to take this seriously, if I want to be prepared for like what the next step is going to be, like I've got to have an insane amount of knowledge to make this happen. So I read a lot, and even just diverse, like I read a bunch about like fashion designers and
super cool.
musicians and designers, and I have font books and look at type, and
I want to see your library.
For sure.
I might rent a book or 7.
Absolutely. As far as like painters that I probably pull from, there's a period in like in the 30s and 40s and 50s, the abstract expressionist like time. So there was Jackson Pollock lived in that time, but I don't really pull from a lot. But there's 5 women painters in that time that like just were doing beautiful, beautiful work. So my all-time favorite is probably a painter named Joan Mitchell. Her paintings are just incredible, really beautiful. She worked in kind of that period. They're super expressive, really free, and her thought process is amazing. There's Lee Kranzner, which she was married to Jackson Pollock. There's a couple of there's Elaine de Kooning, she was married to William de Kooning, and so there's a lot of women in that period who were like saw themselves as equal, and then the men in their lives saw themselves as equal, and just kind of that period I think I pull from a lot. I'm a huge Andy Warhol fan. I probably have 11 plus books of like on him, and either any of them that I see I always try and get. I think just mentality and the way that he saw art and business, and he just is like a
super
crazy
inspiring
thinker.
to me too.
Oh my gosh. A lot of his writing, specifically I have a book of like his journals from like 70s to 80s. It's just like it's so fascinating.
That's really cool.
I love Matisse, and then I love Picasso as well, so I read a lot on them. Kind of looking at their processes, and that's kind of what I look at with everyone of like how did they get to where they were going. Rothko was like an inspiration to me because he didn't get to his signature style until he was 40. He worked for 20 years until he kind of arrived at the thing that like he's known for. He learned and he taught and he did, worked with different artists and went through all kinds of crazy stuff, but didn't really arrive at where he is. So I've always I've given myself a lot of space where it's like, hey, I'm like 27. I have 13 more years to arrive at something that's like meaningful. Not that I'm not doing something meaningful now, but there's not this pressure to like have it figured out at the moment. So
right now at 27, we've got raestone.co.
Yes.
And that's the version that sits before us.
Yes.
We look forward to seeing that 40-year-old version of you at your signature style.
Absolutely.
Not to be confused with 40-year-old virgin, which is what it sounded like you just said.
Version.
I know, check back in.
Check back in.
Yeah.
Well, we look forward to scheduling you for the Those of Us podcast 17 years from 13 years from now.
13 years, yeah.
It's
amazing.
Yeah, 13.
Super honored. Yeah.
So we've gone through Rachel Boyd.
Yes.
Then we talked about the origin of Rae Stone and her current existence.
Yeah.
Does your husband call you Rachel or Rae?
Rachel.
Okay, so
Calls her baby cakes.
but now let's talk about Rachel Stone.
Yeah.
How do you balance all this? You're a teacher, a budding artist that's really like, you're kind of to the point where you're like actually launching, like you're launching the website. You're like doing these things that are intended to make you come across as a professional, real deal artist.
Yeah.
That's not just like a teacher artist, work on the weekends. You've got, let's reach back real quick to, you have a pop-up shop on what date?
November 30th.
And where will that be?
That will be at the Wild Mother, down Sheridan.
In the plaza, right? Oh,
no, it's like right down.
Wild
So
Mother?
it's by Salt and Water and Sweet Yield.
Okay,
so they're doing a shop share.
Right down here.
Yeah.
Okay.
Yeah, right there.
So, you're in these stores, you're doing these pop-ups, you're fascinated with and dreaming about your big installs one day. How do you manage all of that at home? What does your husband do? What's your schedule like? When do you squeeze in creating? Because that's a lot of people use that as a cop out, right? Like, I've got a full-time job,
Yeah.
Sure.
Stuff like that. But here you are essentially at the genesis of your art empire. I mean, like, how do you manage all that?
By just making it happen. I think there's a point in college where I was like, I can be in class for the specific times that I'm supposed to be in class for. Towards my senior year, I was able to have kind of my own studio space, and then classrooms were open more consistently. The buildings I could always punch in. I was like, I can either be on my couch right now, or I can be in the studio working. Because I really do truly enjoy it. I really love it.
Right.
Where it just is life-giving to be able to sit there, that it is to, to be in the studio and paint. Because there's a lot of hours in the day that I think people don't normally account for, because it's like,
for sure,
it's like 8 to 5. I'm out of my job, so I'm just gonna go waste my time and do nothing.
Totally.
I think if I was like single, then I would even have more time for it, because I wouldn't mind, and I try to as much as possible. As I get off work at 3:30, and I'll either go home and change and then work in the studio for a couple of hours, and then go home and spend time with my husband from there. I like working weekends. I kind of, during the summer, I was like working out a little bit, and then when I had a lot of time, I was creating a lot. And then kind of went back to work, and it's like, well, I can either work out or I can paint.
Yeah.
It's like, okay, I'm gonna paint. I'm gonna cut that out. I'm not doing it anymore. And there's also this thing of like, I could go have drinks with a friend, or I could paint.
Yeah.
And like trying to manage that. And sometimes I would say 50-50 on choosing studio time. I had a professor where he was talking about managing a day job versus his creative passions, and he was like, if I could get 1 hour in, then I knew that I was successful. And I almost think of that in the same time, in the same vein of, if I can get 30 minutes of reading in, then I've done what I needed to do for today.
Yeah.
If I can spend time in my sketchbook, or if I can spend time journaling, or if I can just spend any time in the studio, if I can look at Pinterest for however long and get ideas for this and this, then I've done what I needed to do for my career. And thankfully, like, I do, like, working at the school, there are some kind of, like, while my kids are working on projects, I normally like carrying around my markers and like sketchbook, and I'm like creating little baby pieces, and I've painted in class before, and just trying to take advantage, I guess, of time that I have, especially whenever I have deadlines and stuff like that, where it's like, I'm gonna get to school at 7:30, I'm gonna leave at 3:30, go directly to the studio and work until 9, and that's a day well done, and then I'm gonna go home and go from there. So and I don't mind. I really love it. So it's a joy.
Logan and I have talked about this a lot, but like, if you have a spouse who is not supportive of you in your creative role, like, you will plummet and not be successful. And I would say, even knowing Weston, like,
Totally.
He's exceptionally passionate about art, and from what I can tell, extremely supportive of you as
Absolutely,
an artist.
for sure.
Like, he does not view it as like, oh, this is Rachel's hobby that she does in her free time. He views
Totally.
it as like, this is her
He's so
pursuit,
respectful.
that she's going to value and like allocate time towards. So
Absolutely.
it's
Well,
huge.
and it's handy that like our work schedules line up nicely, because like I get off at 3:30 and can be in the studio by 4, and then he doesn't like get home until 6:15, so that gives me at least like 2 hours before he's even home that I would just burn sitting on the couch anyway.
Totally.
So there's a lot of that. Well, and there's sometimes where it's like I get kind of antsy just sitting at home on a Saturday, where I'm like twiddling my thumbs of like, oh my gosh, I've got to do something. Where he's just like having the time of his life, just sitting on the couch. I'm like, oh my gosh, this is killing me. We're just sitting here. This is awful.
Sure.
Like, we've got to move and do something. But of kind of taking deep breaths and spending time and moments with him, because I know that he needs that, and just kind of like, yeah, of like honing it in. And I sometimes like get just like really anxious because I'm like, oh my gosh, like I've got to do something.
Yeah,
like there's just something there, of taking some deep breaths and taking a step out of like, this isn't bad, this is good, I need to relax. And
Totally.
can get in my head sometimes of working, and my mind just like runs, and which is great, but needing his knowledge of like taking a step back.
How much sleep do you lose? Just this is a significant personal challenge for me. Like, not a little thing. It's like a significant personal challenge. Going to sleep.
Period.
Just period.
Wow.
And yeah, even as much as I do in a day, and as much as I run around, and as hard as I work, and even sometimes like physically, like basic, lifting heavy things, moving metal around, installing a project, whatever, still like shutting my creative wheels down at night when all the lights are off and the sound machine or the fan is going, and like I will just, and I can, like, at my having battled with it for so long now, I can tell whenever it's starting to ramp up. Like for me, there's like for me, there's like a moment where, I'm kind of successfully dozing off, and I can tell like, this is good, I'm going to be able to go to sleep. And then there's a moment where just one little
spark
thing. Yeah. And then it's like, I know I'm not going to go to sleep for like 2.5 hours now.
Wow.
Man.
And I really try really hard to be there and be present with my wife, and be, like, I mean, I view that as a significant part of marriage, like just going to bed and not being up and out doing whatever I want while she's asleep, and not even just because of the, the component of what happens in a bed, in a marriage, but just because of like the emotional closeness and whatever. But do you struggle with that too? Since you're like sitting on the couch thinking about things that could be being done or executed, do you do that too?
I don't know. I don't really struggle to go to sleep very much at all. And I was just kind of sitting there thinking through it while you were talking of like why that is. I don't know. I think there's a part of me where it's like I can shut down easily at night, but if I'm sitting there during the day, then it's like I get really tired, and like days I get up at 5 o'clock in the morning to get ready for school, and give so much energy during the day to my kids, and I'm like so on emotionally for them, and so I almost feel like while I'm towards the end of the night, it's like almost just pure exhaustion, where it's like, okay, that's all that I have. I don't know.
But on a Saturday, you're like, these are waking hours that I'm not pouring out on the kids, so let's do something.
Right, and I have free time where it's like just sitting there, where he is like slower to get going in the mornings, where his like weekends are like small. And I almost think that there's something in that of like, if I have free time, then man, it's got to be utilized. But for him, it's like, if this is free time, then
free time is free time.
Yeah, we're not going to do anything. I'm like,
right.
Oh my gosh.
I think it's so interesting that we seek spouses that bring us balance.
Oh, for sure.
Because I'm probably geared more like Weston. Joy is definitely geared more like you, where it's like, and probably more like you. She's like, I thrive on 4 hours of sleep. I stay up, wake up early, and I'm go. But like, she sought, to have a marriage with me, and I sought to have a marriage with her, where we're like, there's so much balance and challenge in that it kind of forces both of us to grow into probably a more healthy version of like ourselves. Yeah.
Well, he's like extremely practical and logical, and I'm like very like, what's the best version, and let's go back from there. Where I think sometimes I'll stress him out because I'm like, what about this idea? I'm not thinking of it as like, this can happen, or this will happen, but it's like, what if? And then it stresses him out because he's like, well, what if? Like, this sounds awful. And then he'll like kind of talk me down, and then we'll get into like this middle ground of like, no, this truly is practical for now, and for this and this. And even just like business cards, where I was talking with my branding people, and they're like, the best option is this, and I'm like, well, yeah, I want the best option because like, I'm a like expensive
Because
things.
I'm worth it.
Yeah.
And I'm like, oh, it's so beautiful. But
Really
let's
good
do it.
business cards are expensive.
Oh yeah. And like they were, black edges on white paper,
For sure.
like all this exciting
Nice.
stuff. And Weston's like, yeah, we don't need that. And I'm like, yes, we freaking do. Like, I want to put the best thing out there every time. He's like, no, literally, it's not practical. And I'm like, well, F you, yeah, it is. Like, totally didn't want to hear it. I'm like, this is my career. And
Yeah.
this is me. And he's like, yeah, but we're in this together. And I'm like, dang, okay, fine. After, like,
It's such a hard balance because it's
getting
like,
upset at
when do I
him.
really dig my heels in, and when do I
Yeah.
say, oh, you're bringing health to like my perspective?
totally, yeah.
So we were talking, Joy and I were talking with this creative couple one time, and they had a similar struggle where one of them was very practical and the other one was just like an idealist.
Totally.
And so when they would talk in air, water, and rock. So if he like started ranting about something and she was like, okay, is this real? And he'd be like, no, this is just air. Like, this is not something
Like,
that we're
have code words
pursuing.
for it.
And then water would be like, this is something I want to do one day, but it's not like the priority for
Yeah.
today. And then rock would be like, this is for sure happening soon.
Totally.
So
And I
they
thought that
had,
was
like,
it was really easy
in
for her.
conversation code words. that-
Exactly.
Oh, I
like
think that's so
essentially
good.
like ways that you can file this away.
Exactly. Because the wife would be like, oh, you want to start like a co-housing farm village. Let me start researching that immediately.
Yeah.
And talking about like the legal side of like all that,
Totally.
Where he was like, no, this is just like would be cool,
Yeah.
Example, I don't know why.
No. Weston and I had a moment of that the other day where I'm like, hey, like, we should, if we're going to stay in Oklahoma City long term, like, where would you want to buy a house? Thinking, like, we're not ready to buy a house for another
Sure.
5-6 years, whatever. And he's thinking that I wanted to buy a house next month. And he's
Yeah.
like, this is totally impractical. He, like, was so stressed out about it, was, like, really upset. And then we had talked about it a couple of days later. And I'm like, no, like, I was just like, hey, we would
Sure.
want to buy a house someday. Because that's what, like, people
Sure.
do.
You're like, where
And
would
then
you like to
him,
buy a
he was
house?
like, Rachel thinks that it's a good idea now, and so he's
Sure.
like, is Rachel an insane person? Can I
Sure.
trust her? Like, going down this like huge thing of, she's
How long
gonna
have you guys been married?
2 years.
Okay.
Yeah.
Like, have you
Hilarious.
crossed the 2-year threshold or almost 2 years?
It was 2 years in September.
Very good. So
Nice.
you've been married 3 months longer than my wife and I. We're about to cross the 2-year.
No way.
And so there's still that. There are those moments where it's like, is he actually crazy? Like,
Totally.
you haven't spent like 10 years with
Right.
one another, so you
Exactly.
haven't totally developed those ruts that you get into where she's like, no, he's just this. He's talking air
Sure.
right now,
Yeah.
not even water or stone.
Yeah.
Totally.
Yeah, that's
No, I think that would be helpful though.
Yeah. We started using it, and Joy has profited greatly from it because
She's
I
the
talk in
practical
air.
thinker.
She's the practical. She is the doer. She gets things
Yeah.
done, and I basically live in air. And there are some like water exceptions. Like stone is like, this is my family.
Right.
Like this is the things that we're doing
We're
intentionally.
not going to
Right.
get rid of a kid tomorrow.
Exactly.
Right, like,
But like starting businesses or like moving or
Yeah.
I'm in air all the
Yeah.
time.
Yeah. No, that's funny.
so you came from a huge family.
Mm-hmm.
You and your husband have been together 2 years. Your career is budding and formalizing essentially. What does he do?
At the moment, he is working for State Farm. He's an insurance agent. He's a licensed agent, but works for another agent.
I gotcha.
His degree is in social work, and then he changed his major a couple of times during college as well. He's a learner. He's a gatherer of knowledge. He's extremely creative, has a really great design mindset, and enjoys a lot of the same things that I enjoy, of like great environments, and
Sure.
he's probably decorated the majority of our house and has very strong color opinions of like,
That's awesome.
that doesn't go together, and I'm like,
Right.
I said it did, and I have a degree in this, but that's okay. I'll cede to you, so that's
I
fine.
said it did.
Yeah. No. We're trying to pick out like another set of Christmas ornaments for our tree, and
Yeah.
I like found some that I liked,
That's
and
a
I
big
showed them
deal.
to him,
Yeah.
and he's like, those colors clash, and I'm like, okay, that's fine. I'll go with you because you're obviously absolutely right
Sure.
in this, even though again, I have a degree in,
Again,
color.
I just want to state.
Yeah, I've, taken color theory, but far be it for me
Sure.
to challenge you on your, judgment of what.
So
but
what-
it's so opinion based, so I'll give it to
So
him.
what is his medium? Like, he's creative. Is it, I mean, we discovered that he has very extensive ornament opinion.
Yeah.
Exactly.
He's an ornament designer.
But is he a musician besides dabbling in, really enjoying curating a space?
Right.
Like, what is his creative medium?
Um,
Is it as defined as yours? Like he's a
No.
he's a painter, he's
No.
whatever.
No, he's not. I think I think he's a dreamer and like has a lot of things that he really, really enjoys. And I think it's something that he is passionate about. And there's a great quote from a magazine. I think it's in Metamorphosis at the moment, but it was like that it's not. It wasn't an artisan, it's like a traditional sense, but it was more of a curator of good ideas. And I think that's the category that I would kind of put him into, that he cares and pursues it and loves beautiful things and has a lot of really strong opinions about things. But and I think that he's kind of still in the process of kind of discovering what he wants to do and what his mark is going to be. And I mean, I so appreciate that he is, supports me so well, and is so, just supportive and wants to give me all the best options and everything like that.
Man,
so
having a spouse that is on the same page and, really, really wants to partner with you.
Yeah.
Like, not just they think you do cool things and they're supportive of you taking time off, but or taking time away from them to be at your studio at night or whatever. Like, they're like supportive and really want to partner with you.
Yeah, it's huge.
Is such a huge thing.
I think Weston and my wife Joy are super similar in the fact that they are super creative.
yeah.
But their role is more of like supporting and challenging creative culture. So like Joy, I don't think she would ever say I'm an artist in this sense, but she's constantly engaging with artists. She's constantly engaging with art culture and like strategically finding ways to spur that forward and then to challenge the mundane within that. And I think Weston is super like that. Like
for sure.
very opinionated, but like his opinions are amazing, and he
they're
like really
spot on.
challenges things that like
sure.
are boring and like I don't know. He's an amazing person to be around, and he is like researcher extraordinaire.
Oh, 100%.
Yeah.
He's on his phone. We'll be watching a movie, and he's on Wikipedia about this such and such like person, and then he's onto this movement and then this part of the country, and he like if we're watching anything, then he's literally going like item by item through the movie, like researching every
and bring
bit
up
of it.
any creative topic, and
For
he
sure.
has something that attaches to that he can weigh in on, and
for sure.
he's a brilliant dude to talk to for sure.
He's wild.
So you came from a family with a ton of kids. Where do you land on
2 years in?
Like 2 years in, are we thinking 4 years? There's a little guy running around. I'm sure you've had the conversation.
We have. I've told him that I will not consider it until I'm 30. I think that, and so that gives me 3 more years.
Sure.
And even that like freaks me out. I don't know. I think.
Is he older or younger than you?
He's 4 years older.
Okay.
Yeah, and I've talked with a lot of my friends and had a lot of conversations around kind of career and family and what that looks like for me and what I thought that was supposed to be as like a 12-year-old or a 16-year-old growing up in this like very conservative type realm where all of the women stayed home and and I know that that's what some women are called to, and I think whenever I look at my life and what I want with my life, it's more of a these are these things that I want to accomplish, and there are these like creative things that I want to accomplish. These are the goals that I want to run after, and then like having a family is I wouldn't say secondary, but it's like
You want it to be established whenever
Yeah.
whenever you begin
yeah,
that. Yeah.
yeah, and I think as like a woman, there's like just biological aspects of like I would have to take such and such time off,
Sure.
and like
For sure.
the
Well, and
the-
knowing exactly how consuming an infant, I mean, having like, raised your siblings
Right.
essentially to
Totally.
an extent, like it's not a new idea to you.
You're
You've
aware of
been
the
there
reality. Yeah.
for like a decade of your life, probably.
Totally.
Yeah.
Yeah.
of like exactly what it would take, and kind of the
I think-
financial aspects of it is like daunting as well.
Yeah.
And
I think 30 is a great age. I mean, looking back at my history, and like 24 was so different for me than where I am now.
Yeah.
We had our first kid at 25. I was 25. He just turned 7 like last week.
yeah,
And luckily he's a cool kid, and you can never, of course, regret a child.
Totally.
But like, he's gone through so much just in terms of our personal development. I just looked up the stat. Average age to have a first baby in the U.S. is, as of 2016, is 26.3 years old. According to data from the National Center of Health Statistics, that's compared to the age of 22.7 for the first baby in 1980.
Oh, it's
And I
for
think
sure
it's
getting
because
older.
it's so like we've talked about our generation bringing back like the handcrafted, the wanting to
Yeah.
develop your thing.
Yeah.
We realize that we're not going to get a job at the grocery store and have a baby, or
sure.
or a Starbucks, or I don't know, whatever, a
Yeah.
manager of a
Yeah.
Whole Foods or whatever.
Totally.
We're not just going to jump straight into that and have like start a family at the same time.
For sure.
Yeah.
It takes time to develop your own business, your own brand, your own art, your own whatever. I think that statistically that group of people is so much bigger than it used to be.
Sure.
I think so. Well, and I think that the way that our generation looks at work and life is really different than like
Right.
the past 30 years. I think of it and I think we view it as like I'm gonna have 5 or 6 different jobs in my lifetime instead of work at
Right, retire from
Southwestern
FedEx.
Bell for 40 years and then I'm gonna
Right.
retire.
Right.
I think the way that we realized that like life and work is more closely intertwined. And I was talking to another creative about this the other day of like with a creative, your life and your career and work and family and friends are all like vastly more integrated than like a typical lawyer, accountant,
Totally.
whatever, where like that's a living, breathing, flowing thing from career to not career.
Yeah.
That everything has to be there has to be some consistency there has to be joy and all, like not joy in all aspects, but there just has to be a lot of more flow there than I think there has been for a creative, because you like pull from everything to create, and like I'm having meetings with this person and then I'm running around and putting my work here, and like eventually that's what I wanted. There's a lot more freedom to it and talking to this person, and where it's a lot more flowing and than someone who is in oil and gas and has a very, very separate like work-life
Totally.
balance.
I would even venture to say that like the cultural norms of like women in business is vastly different than it was in the 80s.
For sure.
And the
For
way that
sure.
we perceive like the actual sacrifice of like the maternity role of like carrying a child, birthing a child, and the responsibility of like the woman to take care of that
Totally.
child, I think is shaped differently than it was in the 80s
I think
as well.
So.
maybe someone will comment this or somebody will whatever, but after I said that stat, like I just looked it up in the moment, but I also thought that birth control has probably come a long way
Sure.
in
Oh,
terms
absolutely,
of
yeah.
convenience and usability and
Yeah.
access to it. But I think it still speaks to like, the difference in our generation of, like we want to build a foundation of a developed career, like because you want to do what you want. You don't want
Yeah.
to go work at Southwestern Bell for 40 years
Totally.
and live for
Yeah.
the show that you watch that night and
Totally,
your,
yeah.
Whatever.
Yeah.
Um,
Want to
well,
be more
so-
in control of like what's happening.
do you think that you'll have multiple, or you? Just take that as it comes.
Yeah, I think Weston would like to have multiple. I think we'll get there. Like,
Yeah.
I don't know. To me, I feel like one seems really manageable, or it's like I can do that.
Sure.
Like
For
I
sure.
can have that baby in a seat while I'm painting, and then we'll go from there. Two feels like a lot. I also feel like I'm also in the stage of like I've seen multiple people around me just have their second baby and their lives have ended.
Yeah.
Not ended, but like
Totally.
they're just like going through a really hard time, and it's like, shoot, I don't want to do that. Like,
Totally.
I don't know that I have time for that.
There is something to be said for once those kids like pass the 3-year-old
Sure.
threshold
Absolutely.
and they're able to play with each other. I feel like you almost gain your life much more rapidly at that
Sure.
point.
For sure.
At least in little, vignettes of time.
But that second kid is real, though. Like,
Yeah.
It really is.
Oh my
like,
gosh.
Yeah.
Yeah.
1 to 2 is, for us, was the hardest. And even talking to other people, it's like that's the big one,
Totally.
to get past.
Yeah.
Um,
Well, and I've sat here thinking, and I've just with the aspect of children, like I've not sat on my hands, but like I have worked full time and I'm trying to pursue this art thing
For sure.
as well. So in a way, I feel like I've sat on my hands, or I'm looking at like 20% capacity,
Sure.
and then 80% of my focus is going towards my job. And then I feel like hopefully in 3 years that has shifted, and then to give it backwards, like, oh yeah, 10% of this is going to my
Sure.
career, 80% of this is going, or 90% is going to my kids for a couple more years. It's like,
Right.
shoot, I don't have time
Totally.
for that. It's in the back of my mind. I know that it feels very selfish, and I know that there's some navigating there, and I know that there's some mind shifting that will happen, and like biology will take over,
Sure.
just the
I
way
don't
that
know that
happens. But
it's totally selfish. I think it's just like practical. Like
Yeah.
if you're looking at something that you want to execute in your life,
Yeah.
and you kind of reverse engineer, how can I execute that?
yeah,
Like, I mean, it's just practical to say, and also beneficial even for the child. Like, if
Totally.
yeah, if
I think the reason it feels selfish is because of the cultural pressure of like
True,
living
yeah.
in the Bible Belt of the nation,
Yeah.
Sure.
and like
Yeah.
the norms that are around us.
For sure.
But like Logan said, like the best thing for your future kids is that you are ready to have kids when you have kids, and that's a desire of your heart.
Yeah.
Because the worst thing would be to like succumb to a pressure, prematurely have a kid, and then resent that kid because
Totally.
you're not ready or
yeah,
like ready for
for
that
sure.
season.
And I'm like, and I also know that there's like a lot of creative things that could happen, like that my family doesn't have to look like the families that I've seen, and it won't look like that. And there's a lot of solutions that I'm sure we haven't even like arrived at yet to come to some of this. So I don't know.
There's
Just,
also
like,
a
sitting
unique
3 years out.
like just moment, or not moment, but dynamic to you that most females don't necessarily experience, and that's that you felt maternal to most of your
yeah, siblings.
Yeah.
really, really young siblings.
Yeah.
And so like my wife only had a brother that was 8 years older than her. So like she
Sure.
gets out of the hang out with my friends sort of season of your life where you don't really have any real responsibilities, and almost instantly is like, I desire to have a kid. Like,
Right.
like
For
that
sure.
was part of, but yeah,
Yeah.
I mean, you growing up with essentially raising, I mean, not totally like you had an absent mom, or of course,
Sure.
or anything
Oh,
like
no,
that,
no. But just
but
the
essentially
necessity
being
of it, yeah.
an integral part of raising so many of your younger siblings just makes it very different for you.
No, for
That's
sure.
cool that your hubby is, supportive and,
Yeah.
patient.
Yeah.
That's a
I think he's
long-suffering
come
role
around.
to be in if
Yeah.
if you're kind of wanting it,
Yeah.
much younger. But
Because he was the baby? Or is he
He's in the middle.
In the middle, okay.
Yeah, he's in the middle.
But like no young siblings.
No. So he hasn't really been around it. And I don't know. I think he probably would have had kids right away,
right.
and would have been really happy with it. And I think there's a journey for him and kind of coming
Sure.
around to like being on board with where I'm at. Because I'm like, the fact of the
Hey,
matter
this guy's
is,
about to
homie.
try to come in the door. You might go just chat with him and say we're wrapping something up. But
Yeah, the fact of the matter is, yeah.
hey, man, we're wrapping something up real quick. Can I chat with you in a minute? It's okay. It's okay.
Nathan, can you direct him out?
Yeah,
Yeah.
we're just recording something right now. Can I chat? Can you like kind of maybe just be quiet for another 5 minutes or so? Okay. Well, as a terrible segue to the summary of this whole thing, it's been amazing to have you.
Yeah.
And chat with you, and I really look forward.
Sorry, now that he's gone, can we like actually segue? That was real. What were you saying before
We
he walked
probably
in?
need to keep that door locked until we're done, and then maybe even put like, for future reference, we need
Recording
to
in
put a
progress.
little, like recording in progress.
I love that he like did not even acknowledge that you were there. He just like blew past you inside the store.
Well, it's not. I don't want it to be a racially infused sentence that I'm about to say, but having dealt with him, like I think that
Sure.
that whatever culture that he is from is just kind of different,
Sure.
and there are a few less borders.
Yeah.
In human interaction.
Sure.
He has 2 pieces of art over there, and he came by in that van one day, which is why I knew he was about to come in. And he was like, "Hey, I just saw that you have this wall. Are you renting that space, or can I put my paintings there?" I was like, "Well, we actually have, a plan for that wall. We have an area over here that we're thinking about." He's like, "Okay, you just take these," and I was like, well, let me talk. I tried to use the partner as a scapegoat.
Sure.
Like, well, let me talk to my partner. I'll take some pictures of it. We'll see if they,
Yeah.
really vibe with our space and whatever. And he was like, no. You just take them, and maybe you sell them today, and maybe
Oh my
like
gosh.
it was just. I was like, all right, man. He's a super sweet old guy, but it was
Yeah.
just like,
Yeah.
what do I do? Dude, take your paintings. Get off my curb. Like,
Sure.
Yeah,
it would have almost
Get
taken
off my
something.
lawn.
It would have almost taken something that blunt
I don't
to
want
get
them
him to
totally
yeah.
to like break through.
Anyway, so we were talking about you and your husband's dynamic with having kids. He's
Yeah.
very patient and long-suffering in that role, and it seemed like you were saying he's kind of come around and has really arrived at a place of comfort with that plan. And
Yeah. Yeah, I think that initially, I think that, which is so beautiful about him, is that he has such a high value on being a dad, and he's like so excited about
Sure.
getting there.
Yeah.
That I think he was like, okay, I'm married, let's do it.
Right.
Sure.
Like I'm ready for it. I think this will be amazing, and I think it's been healthy for him to kind of take some steps back, and say, okay, let's work on being a good husband, and let's take things a little bit slower. Because
Totally.
I think he almost had this like, the dad is the pinnacle of like all existence.
Yeah.
Sure.
Like this is just the best thing that could possibly happen.
that was his stone.
Yeah, of like
Yeah.
I'm
Air,
gonna
water,
be,
stone.
Totally.
Like,
Yeah.
He was like, that is the
I'm gonna
concrete
rock
goal.
this. I'm gonna be
Yeah.
so good at it. And I'm
That's
like,
awesome.
you know,
Plus,
let's
being 4
take
years
a
older,
pause.
he's had like more time to think about that
For
and
sure,
anticipate that.
and get
Yeah.
there. And again, obviously our childhoods are really different, and so I think he's kind of come around and kind of seen the value in like growing our relationship and focusing on making sure that we have a really great strong foundation to grow from, and that like even if we do, when we have children or one kid or whatever, like our relationship will still stand, and our
Yeah.
relationship will stand past our kids moving on. And
Yeah, that's awesome.
and like us having really not successful but us almost finding enjoyment from what we're doing
Yeah.
is going to be essential to our kids' happiness. And so I think
Totally.
he kind of like gets that a little bit not better, but like is of an understanding of like, oh yeah, like
Right.
we're working towards, it's not like we're not working towards kids, we are, but we just want to make sure that they get brought into the best possible
For sure.
circumstances.
Totally.
So,
Because like Joy and I talk about this a lot, but like you want to be able to tell your kids like if you're passionate about something, you can go after it.
For sure.
But if they're not seeing that in their parents, those are empty words.
Yeah.
And so
Yeah.
like wanting to bring them into a world where their parents are going after the things that they feel passionate about and
Yeah.
want to do, and they see
Absolutely.
that example in their own household to
For
kind
sure.
of drive that motivation
Yeah.
is huge.
yeah, absolutely.
It's beautiful. I love that he's so supportive, and I love that you guys are, really it is really hard when that is a fixation of one of the partners to be able to zoom out and relent to a more practical plan. Like having a kid is such a it's like in your spine, you know, it's like so deep inside you that to be able to just pull back from that in a practical way and not resent the other person is it takes, I think, a lot of people, I don't know, it can take you down a pretty deep and dark path. But anyways, that's awesome.
Yeah.
Rae, it's been so good to have you and to chat with you.
Absolutely.
Let's wrap this up and go get some breakfast. I'm hungry.
Yeah.
Are you hungry?
Sounds good.
I'm starving.
Sweet. Well, Rae, touch up raestone.co.
Yep.
Yes.
Her Instagram handle is Rae, RAE _ Stone, STONE _.
Yes.
And are you big on Facebook? Like, do you
No.
care about Facebook at all?
No.
Does anybody
I don't.
No.
care about Facebook?
I'm not
Our
active.
parents, I think, care about Facebook.
Yeah, they care
And
about
people who
bickering
think
about
that
politics.
other people want to hear their opinion are really excited on Facebook.
Right. So, go follow her, check out all that stuff. Let's go get some coffee and some breakfast.